Hi, and welcome to Demystifying Life. I am your hostess, Misty J. Zanger, and I wanted to get back into yoga a little bit, doing more for my body, heart, soul, mind, and for 6.5 years I taught yoga. And that was probably 4 or 5 years ago already that I've left teaching officially yoga. And I have only dabbled with it a little bit here and there. And I wanted to create an opportunity for myself and others to engage with a little bit more of body movements, mostly chill. My favorite style when I did teach was definitely more of a gentle, relaxed, holding the stretches a little longer, like a restorative type yoga. So it definitely is the modality I like to dabble the most in. So we won't even be standing for sure today. And I also wanted to intertwine it with some ideas I have around awareness of what we do as habits, what sometimes those habits lead to for addictions. And if you are joining me, you can just follow along, do what feels good for your body, and wherever it is, whatever you got, you improvise. You are creative geniuses, so you can definitely do whatever feels best and whatever you have space for. You can do this on a bed, you can do it on a picnic table, you can do it on the floor of your messy art room studio space like I am. So anything goes. You just have to show up and want to, I guess, embrace whatever comes for you. Maybe it's a decently long nap. It really doesn't matter to me. I can't see you anyways. So do what feels good. That was one of the favoriteest parts of my yoga, both practice and teaching, was getting to embrace doing what feels good in your body. And just allowing the movement or the stillness to both flow and come and go as it pleases almost. You're more or less just listening and steering the ship just a little bit at the cues of what feels good. And if some idea in you gets triggered by what I'm doing, that's fantastic. So, awareness of our body, it's an immaculate machine. It is hyper engineered with such creative genius, and the abilities are almost limitless at what the body can do. And I think we undermine and limit it so much. So it's nice to be able to honor it for the amazingness that it is, and to give into it and let it kind of take control. Our minds just seem to overpower our intuition, which is within our bodies, both in movement and as well as feelings, emotions. And we tend to minimize it. And that's not really helpful to our general well-being. And if your body isn't being listened to and that intuition, then what are we listening to? I think the answer might be those around us, whether that's actual people in our lives, family, friends, non-friends, or even media in all the capacities that is. And sometimes we get into a comparison or a very competitive frame of mind. And I think lots would argue that that's the ego part of ourselves coming into effect. And it has a time and place, but for our bestest selves to come forward, I think you need to actually be more mindful of the cooperative side of our bodies and how everything kind of flows together and has interconnectedness and is way more multi-layered than, again, we sometimes give it credit. Thanks for joining, by the way. Just doing a little hip stretch. I'm on a bolster. I have a little bit of a sore tailbone from a fall on the ice before Christmas. Still look pretty tender 2 months later. So I just happen to have a bolster kicking around. You could roll up a towel or a blanket if you'd want to elevate your hips a little. And also lay down in this position, which I might just remove that bolster for that. And the importance of breathing. Any type of breath. I've never been particularly specific about what kind of breath. I like the exhale and the fogging of the mirror kind of effect, which I think is like a dragon's breath where you let some heat out. The more you exhale and release that tension, the more you're able to just open up just a little bit more into whatever pose you're in. I'll take a couple deep breaths here. And I'm going to slowly unwind, do a good old hugging the knees into the chest, doing some circles, to and fro. And I'm going to switch sides. And nice to notice your hands. Are they clenched? Are they relaxed? Big sign if they're clenched that a lot more of you is not relaxed. And not saying that if they're not clenched that the rest of you is relaxed, but I've taken it as a good cue. If I'm in a pose and my hands are clenched, then I know to dig a little deeper and find some relaxation and breathe a little bit more. And unwinding that, loosen up the hips, going into a big full stretch. Good time to roll out the wrists and ankles. And also just take a minute laying here with your eyes closed to feel where there's some tender spots, tightness, maybe injury, things to be mindful of. Going into a resting butterfly. Sometimes it's nice to have either blocks or your hands just tuck under your hips or thighs a little bit. And again, breathe into this, releasing. Trying to make sure your back's to the mat. If you want to add movement, you can, by all means. Sometimes in restorative yoga, you hold the same exact position for what feels like a decade. If your body wants to move, maybe you should let it. Can you willpower through it? Of course. And sometimes that's where the magic is too. Just gonna roll onto my side for a bit. Drop a foot up. Just open that hip even a little bit more. You can play around with where your legs and arms go. And this one, if you do have your arm extended and you're rolling onto that, you're going to get a nice shoulder stretch here too. Most poses have more than one stretch benefit going on to it. So if you're feeling like it's just specifically isolated to one spot, figure out an adaptation that could maybe allow you to get a secondary. Maybe you can get an upper and a lower body stretch out of it. Even into the stretching of your chest. We've got to also be mindful of the front of our bodies and the backs, as well as our sides. So we want to try to get to most parts. And if you do some in the front, do some in the back, do some on the top, do some on the bottom. And coming back to center. In this pose, I'm just going to rotate into a little bit of a happy baby. And options where you grab your feet. Maybe it's not even. Maybe you grab your legs in some capacity. Maybe it's too intense to grab the feet. Rocking from side to side is definitely up to you. As your feet are being pulled down by your hands, they're also pressing up. So you should feel a nice stretch through the back of your legs into your hips. And back to hugging the knees in the chest. Rotating around, drawing different shapes in both directions. Again, focusing your awareness into your body, taking a moment, dropping back into a resting butterfly. And maybe this time you extend one leg out, and it's more like a resting tree pose. And again, you want to do some upper body, put in your arms, tee them up with the floor, looking opposite of your bent leg. This is one where you can take that bent leg and roll it across your body. The opposite hand can help pull it a little bit to that side. And then you can look over the opposite shoulder of the way your knee's twisting across your body. Hugging your knee into your chest, doing some circles in both directions. And a nice one here can be to put your bent leg's ankle just on your straightened leg, which is now going to bend, and put it onto its thigh, just below the knee, above, depending on what direction you are thinking, but not towards the shin, towards the hip. And this one, the more you bring that leg in, the more it's going to stretch through your hip. You have an option. You can go through and do a figure 4 on a straight leg and kind of lift your head up a little bit more. And that's an option here. You can bend that leg that it's propped on and reach over the shin and clasp there for a little bit of a deeper stretch. And the more you try to open your knee up on your stretching leg here, the more it should do a little bit of a number into your hip. Again, breathing. When you're ready, gently release that leg down. Do a few little circles and hip release. And slowly make your way to hugging your knees into your chest again. And then we're going to go back into a butterfly, resting butterfly. Straightening the opposite leg. Your body should remember. And just into a resting tree pose here for a couple moments. And start to move that bent leg like a windshield wiper. We're going to grab it, hug it in a little bit, do a couple little circles. And we're going to cross it over our one straight leg, now bent. Open up that knee. And you can just lay here. Add the arms, teeing them up with the ground. Looking over the opposite way as our legs drop to the side. And still trying to open up that knee and allow that hip stretch to occur just a little deeper. Coming back to center, we're going to go in and do that figure 4 stretch where we're reaching through our legs around our straight leg's thigh or shin if it's bent at the knee. You can try and relax your head in this one. There's a lot going on, so it might be a little bit harder to relax onto your surface. When we bring our legs up into the air, it allows the blood flow back to our heart to recirculate and rejuvenate. Again, just a little side to side. Moving what feels good. Maybe cross them over fully. Dropping towards your surface one way. Your opposite arm to that twist tees up with the floor, and you can look over it. Just get a little deeper. Torso, shoulder, back and hip stretch. Continue to breathe. Close your eyes. Just a couple more deep breaths here. We'll slowly untwist. Come back to center. Hug your knees into your chest. Rotating around again, loosen up your hips. Done lots of hips so far. I'm going to roll on to whatever side feels comfortable. Take a moment here. See how you're feeling. Maybe you straighten your top leg. Lift it, stretch it out, roll out your ankle. And from here, I'm going to rotate onto my knees into a child's pose with your hands either crossed over in front of you as like a little pillow. So you can rest there. You can outstretch them in front of you. Relax your head down all the way. If that's not comfortable, you can always use a prop, rolled up towel, pillow, or a bolster. And send your hips back. Try and just rest into this. Slowly coming back up onto your hands and knees. And also, if your knees are uncomfortable being on them, it's nice to either roll up a towel, blanket, or again, you can even do things on a nice little cushy bolster. So with this one, you're going to just do a little hip roll side to side. Classic cat-cow, arching the back, dropping the head, looking towards your belly button. And add some movement as it feels good for you. Dropping the belly, looking up. Tailbone is lifted. Just arching your back down. And flow between your cat and cow as slowly or quickly as you'd like. There's no race, no rush. Move those hips and shoulders. This is also a really good position to stretch out your wrists, which, blessing and a curse to get into that stretching territory, but it's important. Flipping your hands over so the palms face upwards towards your armpits. And this one, the more you lean back, still staying on your wrists, but leaning back, so you might have to remove any block or bolster and just sit on your legs. Just adjust where your hands are. They could be beside you even. Important to breathe into this one, as it can be very intense depending what you do for work. Maybe you're on the keyboard a lot with the computer. Who knows? Sometimes we just end up being in the same position for so long, we don't realize we've lost so much mobility in our wrists. Flipping them back downwards, and then our fingers outwards and our thumbs up towards the top of our mat or space. This one you can rotate more around, so you can slowly work your fingers back towards your knees. And this one you can still play with tipping back and sending that weight towards your feet. And if you curl your feet under, then you can really get into a foot stretch while you're doing this. So again, working more than one body part at a time. Definitely deep breaths here. As it can become very intense very quickly. We're going to release our wrists, and you might want to just go back to your palms up towards your body and just counter stretch that just a little bit. And we're going to release out of that, but we're going to put one foot into the other foot's arch. We're going to sit back onto it. Yeah. So you're going to have to play around, because the top of one foot is going to be the pressure point into the base and arch of the other. And your goal is to sit up on top of this stacked foot maneuver, which can become very intense. Lots of us don't maybe take care of our feet and our shoes and whatever else we're doing with our feet, wearing sandals and other unsupportive arch type footwear can have a toll on us. So important to breathe. And if it's too intense to sit back, then just lean forward. Just take that pressure off however much you need to. Maybe you can't even do this today. Maybe you can just sit here. Maybe you try one foot over the other. I can tell you one foot of mine is definitely more tender and intense because I stepped on a dog toy last week, and it definitely instantly felt not how I would want my foot to feel. It was a little bit too intense. And now that I'm on it in this stretch, I can definitely feel that it's tender still. But again, I can adjust, continue to breathe, work through it. The pros are going to outweigh the cons on this one. Unless you're starting to feel like a little Charlie horsey and that muscle's getting too intense, start to breathe and maybe you release out of it. You can try cracking your toes, going back and curling your toes under briefly, and then just take your legs and stretch it out, shake it out, whatever feels good here. And we're going to go back into a child's pose and rest, whichever way feels good for you. Take a few moments here. From here, we're going to just prop our hips up into, it's going to be a puppy pose. So your hips are stacked on your knees, and then you're going to bring your hands out in front and try to relax down. Again, so the difference between a child's pose and a puppy pose is where your hips are going to go. So child's pose is back. Puppy pose, hips are up, stacked on the knees. And then reaching forward. And you're going to get more of a chest stretch with this one. And your head can go all the way down to the mat. If it's too intense, find an in-between. You can rest your head again somewhere that feels comfortable. And then we're going to take one arm and pass it through the underarm of the still propped up arm. And so you're threading the needle, and you're just going to, again, keep your hips stacked above your knees, one arm out, the other reaches through, relax onto the shoulder, and find a comfortable position here to stretch out that shoulder. And you can do whichever feels good with your non-stretched shoulder arm here. You can take the hand and just press it into the surface, giving a little more twist. You can even release that and take it to your low back, which can become, again, very intense very quickly. So if it's not working, make your adjustments, bring the hand back down anytime. And take a few nice deep breaths here. We'll slowly come back up to all fours and thread the opposite arm through, resting down again on that shoulder, making some adjustments, and deciding what your other arm wants to do and what feels good in the moment. Couple more deep breaths here. And slowly coming back up onto all fours. You're going to want to get off your knees here. Rotating around onto your keister, your lovely little glutes. I'm just going to go legs out in front into a little plank position. Trying to reach towards our toes. And I'm just resting my hands on my shins. Not officially trying to actually even extend up, but you can do what feels good. The moment I lift my hands off my legs, the intensity through my glutes and hips definitely increases. So if that's something you're into, give her. On these kind of stretches, it's nice to do like a inhale, extend into your upper torso nice and tall. And then as you exhale, bending, reaching forward a little further. Do it again. Inhale, lengthen. And exhale, reaching forward. One last time with that. Inhale, lengthen. And exhale, reach. And this time, you're going to hold the stretch, not your breath, and just see what a difference that had made from before we did the 3 breaths to now. And dropping your head, your chin towards your chest, just stretching through the back of your neck a little more. Again, add a slight little crank, a little twisty twist to each side. And bringing that awareness to how you're feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, maybe even some spiritual awareness. Was your head all discombobulated and full of things occupying your bandwidth before you started? And where is it at now? Little seated tree reaching out. Should be able to reach a little further with one leg tucked in versus both extended out. And just again, trying to reach a little further than you did at the beginning of our time together. And you can do the extension and exhale breaths here. It works. And 2 or 3 of those, and then just again holding your stretch, but not your breath. Sometimes here you can add an opposite arm stretch over, whichever. You can do both hands and a torso fold over that hip, or opening it up. And then coming back, going into a seated butterfly. An awareness about so many things in our lives versus just them existing in our lives. When you can bring it into your awareness, you can acknowledge what it's doing for you. Is it in your favor? Or is it more of a con, or holding you back, or preventing you from doing something, even to the point of hurting you or those around you? So being mindful of what we're allowing in, what we allow out, which will go nicely into our next series segment, which is burnout and boundaries. All of it interconnected. We're going to extend the opposite leg out into our tree. And again, deciding, do you want to do some of those extension and exhale breaths? Do you want to open up your opposite arm overhead? You want both to lean over and square your hips more over that leg. And you can do a combination of both. Sky's the limit. Do what you want. You're your own person. And do you feel in charge of you? I think is another awareness component that we should be thinking about. Are we in our own driver's seat? And like sometimes who's driving? We have components of us that can sometimes rule over and the saying, drive the bus. And we don't want some of those more negative, scared, heightened flight or flight emotions to steer us all the time. They can help pick the radio station, they can help give directions, and that truly can help keep you safe. But sometimes we let it over control, and it becomes no longer a life we want to be living, and our wellness gets sacrificed. Back to a seated butterfly. Sit up nice and tall here. Taking a couple breaths, moving your neck however feels good. Maybe you look up, stretching through the front of your neck. Slight little twist of our chin towards one shoulder. Feeling that stretch into our jaw. Then the other side. Releasing down our chin towards our chest. Releasing your feet out further. Full extension if you'd like. Resting your hands back. Opening up the chest and shoulders just a little bit here. You can rest your head back if you'd like. A little bit more stretch through the neck. Almost like there's a string in your sternum here, and it's pulling out. And your shoulder blades are pinching together. Chin towards your chest. And you can do a little side to side here with your chin towards either clavicle or shoulder side. Just kind of shake it out and see how you're feeling, how you're doing as we start to go into our unwind part of our time together. You can go into whatever feels good for a moment. Again, this is your body awareness of what, just let it move and be like, oh, well, that feels actually pretty good like that. And then maybe mimic the same thing on the other side, the opposite direction. And taking that all in. And I hope you can feel empowered to take control of what is in your control. And your body is in your control. Might not seem like it at all times, and it does things that definitely seem out of our control. But we can do things to counterbalance it. And it might take some effort, some energy, and some time, which means a lot of patience, but you are definitely capable of attuning to your body and helping it to help you for your mental wellness, not just your physical wellness. From here, we're just going to go into a resting position that's comfortable for you. You can lay on your back. You could stay seated. You could lay on your front. You could lay on your side. Honestly, whatever works for you is going to be good enough for today. That's all you need. It's just to rest. So take a few moments, chillax, close your eyes, and just give in. If a thought comes into your head, acknowledge it, and then set it free. It will come back later. Settling into a natural breath. Doing a full body scan here from head to toe. How are you feeling? Are those tender and sore spots or stiff little tweaks we had still bothering you? Are they less intense? Are they more intense? Can you breathe into it just a little bit? Maybe exhale a big sigh. And just release. Sometimes here, if you're laying on your back, bending your legs and bringing your knees together allows that low back to shift into your surface, releasing some of that tension. And if your body wants to add some movement here, rotating hips, shoulders, roll out those wrists and ankles one more time. Hugging your knees into your chest if you're laying down. And when you're ready, rolling to whatever side is comfortable. And taking a moment here. And when you're ready, pressing up into a seated posture. Legs crossed if that's comfortable. Sitting up nice and tall. Bringing your hands to heart center. Eyes closed. Couple nice breaths here. And I'd like to offer you a little reminder that a little by a little becomes a lot, which is an African proverb that my life coach has told me many a times, and I really enjoy it. And today was a little and a lot. And I'm proud of you, and I love you so, so very much. And I really hope to see you again. Thanks for joining me. Namaste.